The charity gala seemed like a perfect evening until the socialite took matters too far. But what happens when the black girl at the event turns the tables on her is nothing short of extraordinary. New York City. New York. What would you do if someone publicly humiliated you, believing you didn't belong? 19-year-old Ava Thompson wasn't supposed to be at the elite charity gala. She had earned an invitation through her hard work in community activism. It was an evening meant to celebrate philanthropy, success, and progress. Yet the unspoken truth was clear. This was a world where status and wealth dictated who truly belonged. Surrounded by celebrities and wealthy socialites, she felt out of place, but determined to prove she belonged. Dressed in an elegant, modest gown borrowed from a friend, she held her head high as she walked through the ballroom, trying to ignore the subtle glances in her direction. That was until Evelyn Lancaster, a well-known billionaire socialite, took notice of her. The older woman had spent decades in the spotlight, her influence stretching far beyond the event itself. She prided herself on knowing everyone in high society, and when she spotted Ava, confusion flickered across her face before it twisted into something sharper. Disapproval. "You must be the help." Evelyn smirked as Ava reached for a glass of champagne. The words dripped with condescension, designed to remind Ava that she was an outsider. Ava's heart pounded, but she refused to let the insult get to her. She inhaled deeply, steadying herself. She had worked too hard, come too far to be dismissed so easily. Then Evelyn did the unthinkable. She slapped the drink out of Ava's hand. The crystal glass shattered against the marble floor, the golden liquid spreading at Ava's feet. Because in that moment, the entire ballroom froze. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Eyes turned toward the commotion. The rich and powerful watched in fascination, waiting to see how the moment would unfold. Ava's fingers curled into fists at her sides. The humiliation burned hot in her chest, but she refused to let it consume her. She could feel the weight of their expectations, waiting for her to lower her head, to shrink, to disappear. But she wouldn't. Instead, she met Evelyn's gaze, unflinching. The older woman's smirk faltered for the briefest moment. "If you were Ava, how would you have reacted?" The moment Ava realized she was being targeted. The one time Ava tried to celebrate her success, everything changed. "You don't belong here," Evelyn sneered. "People like you never do." Gasps rippled through the room. Some guests whispered, others just watched. The sharp clinking of silverware against fine china came to an abrupt halt as every eye in the ballroom focused on Ava. Ava clenched her fists, feeling her face burn with humiliation. A part of her wanted to disappear, to avoid the weight of the stairs pressing down on her. But another part of her, one that had fought her whole life to be seen, refused to back down. She could have backed down. She could have walked away. She could have let Evelyn's words define her place in the room. But instead, she took a deep breath and stood her ground. And what kind of person belongs here, Evelyn? Someone who buys their way in? Or someone who earns it? A murmur spread through the crowd. Some guests exchanged uneasy glances, while others smirked, eager to see how this confrontation would unfold. The tension in the room thickened like the scent of expensive champagne lingering in the air. Evelyn's smug smile faltered for the briefest moment, but she quickly recovered, lifting her chin. "Money makes the rules, dear. And you're just another outsider pretending you matter." Ava felt the sting of Evelyn's words, but she refused to let them shake her. She glanced around the room, making sure to meet the eyes of those who had dismissed her, those who had watched in silence as Evelyn humiliated her. "Funny," Ava said, her voice steady. "I thought this gala was about helping people, not tearing them down. But I guess to some, kindness is just another accessory, one that can be put on and taken off whenever it's convenient." The crowd let out an audible gasp. A few guests nodded in agreement, whispering amongst themselves. Even those who had remained indifferent could no longer ignore the shift in energy. Evelyn's jaw tightened. She wasn't used to being challenged, especially not in public. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for an ally, but none of her usual supporters came to her defense. Ava straightened her posture. "If I don't belong here, Evelyn, then maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe the problem is what this room thinks belonging really means." The silence that followed was deafening. Evelyn's confidence wavered, and for the first time that night, she had nothing to say. Ava had just turned the tables, a confrontation that no one saw coming. When the unthinkable happened, Ava didn't back down. Evelyn laughed coldly. "You think you're better than me?" Ava tilted her head. "No, but I know I'm stronger." The room watched in stunned silence as Ava walked onto the stage. The sound of her heels clicking against the polished floor echoed in the otherwise quiet ballroom. Every pair of eyes was on her, waiting to see what she would do next. She picked up the microphone, her grip firm, her expression unwavering. "This gala is supposed to be about charity and change," she said, her voice ringing out clearly. "But real change doesn't happen when people like her decide who is worthy. Real change happens when we stop pretending that power, privilege, and wealth are the only things that define value." Guests shifted uncomfortably. The tension was thick, pressing down on the space like a heavy weight. Some looked at Evelyn, waiting for her to snap back, but for once she had nothing to say. Then something surprising happened. A well-respected philanthropist, Mr. Sinclair, stepped forward, adjusting his tie as he cleared his throat. "Ava is right, and I will personally donate to her community initiative." A hush fell over the crowd, and then a murmur spread like wildfire. Another guest stood. "So will I." One by one, hands went up, pledges being made before Ava's very eyes. The same people who had dismissed her just moments ago were now standing with her. Evelyn's face turned red as she watched the shift happen right in front of her. "This is ridiculous," she muttered under her breath, but no one was listening anymore. Ava took a deep breath, steadying herself as she looked across the room. She had come here feeling like an outsider, but now she had redefined what it meant to belong. Ava hadn't just defended herself, she had changed the course of the entire evening. Do you think it's better to fight back in moments of injustice or take the high road? The moment Evelyn's power slipped away. One insult, one moment, and everything changed. The media exploded. Billionaire socialite humiliates black activist at gala. Evelyn's PR team scrambled to control the damage. Crisis meetings were held behind closed doors, strategists working around the clock to salvage what was left of her reputation. But no amount of carefully crafted statements could erase what had already been seen by millions. "It was just a misunderstanding," she claimed in an interview, her voice carefully measured, her expression designed to evoke sympathy. "My words were taken out of context. I would never intentionally hurt someone." But footage of the slap had already gone viral. The world had seen the truth with their own eyes. No amount of spin could undo the damage. Social media erupted with outrage. Hashtags calling for accountability trended worldwide. People dissected every frame of the video, replaying the moment when Evelyn's smug smirk turned to panic as the power dynamic shifted. High-profile donors distanced themselves from her. Some issued statements condemning her behavior. Others chose the quiet route, subtly removing their affiliations. Invitations to exclusive events were rescinded. Doors that had once been wide open now firmly shut. Sponsors pulled out of her upcoming projects. Contracts that had seemed ironclad were suddenly void. Endorsements vanished overnight. A few companies tried to defend their association with her, but the backlash was swift and merciless. The world had changed, and people were no longer willing to overlook blatant discrimination for the sake of wealth and power. And the charity? They issued a statement condemning Evelyn's actions. "We stand for inclusivity and progress," the board announced. "Evelyn Lancaster's behavior does not reflect our values. Effective immediately, she will no longer be affiliated with our organization." The same guests who had once admired her now avoided eye contact at social events. Whispers followed her wherever she went, and for the first time in her life, she was on the outside looking in. She had spent years building her reputation, and in one night, she lost it all. Do you believe people like Evelyn should be given second chances? A new opportunity, a stronger voice. One act of courage changed everything. Ava's story spread across social media, inspiring young activists everywhere. People shared clips of her speech, praising her bravery and resilience. Hashtags in her name trended globally, sparking conversations about discrimination and the power of standing up for oneself. Messages flooded her inbox from students, professionals, and activists alike, thanking her for speaking out. The charity offered her a leadership role in their next big initiative. It was an opportunity she never saw coming. "We need fresh voices like yours," Mr. Sinclair told her. "You have a way of making people listen. We'd love for you to help shape the future of this organization." Ava was stunned. The very organization that had once seemed out of reach was now inviting her to take a seat at the table. She hesitated, overwhelmed by the sudden shift in her reality. Invitations to speak at conferences started pouring in. Colleges, businesses, and advocacy groups wanted to hear her story. She was invited to panel discussions and interviews, her voice now carrying a weight she hadn't realized before. "I never expected this," Ava admitted during an interview. "I just wanted to stand up for myself. But now?" She was standing up for thousands. Every word she spoke resonated with those who had experienced similar struggles. Young women reached out to tell her how much her story meant to them. Communities that had felt overlooked found hope in her resilience. Ava wasn't just another guest at a gala anymore. She had become a symbol of perseverance, of refusing to be silenced. And she wasn't done yet, because sometimes moments of humiliation become the start of something greater. Have you ever turned a bad experience into an opportunity? The last person Ava expected to see. When the tables turned, Evelyn had a choice. A month later, Ava received an unexpected message. "Evelyn Lancaster wants to meet with you." Ava raised an eyebrow, but agreed. At the cafe, Evelyn looked different, less arrogant, more uncertain. Her usual designer outfit seemed less carefully curated, her makeup less polished. For the first time, she looked like someone without all the answers, someone who had been forced to face something she didn't want to see. "I was wrong," she admitted, her voice quieter than Ava had ever heard it. "I let my ignorance take over. I thought I understood the world, but I didn't." Ava folded her arms, leaning back in her chair. "And what do you want me to do with that?" Evelyn hesitated. "I don't expect forgiveness. I want to learn, I want to do better, but I don't know where to start. Ava studied her, searching for any trace of insincerity, but Evelyn's gaze was steady. The woman who once publicly humiliated her now sat across from her, stripped of the power and confidence she had once carried so effortlessly. For a long moment Ava said nothing. Then slowly, she reached into her bag and pulled out a flyer. She slid it across the table toward Evelyn. "Come to our next charity event," she said, "and listen this time. Don't speak, just listen. Hear the stories of the people you once overlooked. Then decide what you're going to do next." Evelyn picked up the flyer, running her fingers over the edges. Her expression was unreadable, but she nodded. "I will." Ava finished her coffee and stood. "We'll see." As she walked away, she realized something. Change doesn't just happen. It has to be chosen, fought for, and earned. Evelyn had taken the first step, but only time would tell if she would take the rest. Do you believe people can truly change after being exposed for their actions? A moment that transformed lives. A hero deserves more than just a thank you. Ava continued to grow as an activist and speaker. She traveled across the country, speaking at universities, rallies, and conferences. People who had once dismissed her now listened. Her voice carried weight, and her story inspired thousands. Invitations flooded in from organizations that had never considered her before, eager to have her voice amplify their missions. The charity raised record-breaking funds after the incident. Donations poured in from people moved by Ava's courage, allowing the organization to expand its outreach. More scholarships were awarded, more initiatives launched. Change was happening, and Ava was at the center of it. Community programs benefited from the surge in support, and individuals who had once felt overlooked were now receiving the assistance they needed. Evelyn, now out of the spotlight, started volunteering quietly. At first, she avoided recognition, working behind the scenes at shelters and community programs. But over time, she found a new purpose. Her actions spoke louder than any apology ever could. She dedicated herself to learning from those she had once ignored, listening to their experiences, and using her resources to help in ways she had never considered before. As time passed, Ava encountered Evelyn at various charity events. They weren't friends, but they had reached an understanding. Ava saw the effort Evelyn was making, and while the past couldn't be erased, the future could be shaped by different choices. "What's next for you?" a journalist asked Ava during an interview. She smiled, the same confident smile she had the night of the gala. "Making sure no one else feels like they don't belong." She walked onto another stage, ready for her next speech. The audience hushed in anticipation, waiting to hear from the woman who had turned humiliation into empowerment. The weight of the moment sat heavy on her shoulders, but she embraced it. This was her calling, and she would not let it go to waste. Ava had won her battle that night. But in the end, she had rewritten the future of activism. What lessons can we learn from Ava's story? How can we apply them to our own lives? Would you have done what Ava did? Comment below. Like and share if you believe in standing up for yourself.